Welcome to the Fade 5 College Edition here on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Ben Wittenstein and Nate Jacobson with you. Nate, we're going into week 11 into college football. It's nuts that we are already in week double digits for college football. It seems like time's just flying by as we start November. How you doing? I think we had a pretty decent week last weekend.
Yeah, I don't even remember. I think it was. I know if my personal betting, I went like 4-4, so I lost on the juice. But a little bit later this week on a Thursday, we're recording this. I think it's okay to have a little extra time, especially to digest the first edition of the college football playoff. So, going forward, maybe we'll keep doing a Thursday record just so we have like as much information as possible. But we'll have to talk about that off air. But I think it's an okay thing we're going a day later, just with the big news of the college football playoff being released and how that maybe impacts betting going forward.
Yeah, Indiana, top 10 team, college football playoff. I just had to put that out there because I'm just unbelievably excited that Indiana's a top 10 team and is actually being noticed as an undefeated team. We're very excited about that. Okay, Nate, let's just get into it. As we get into, we've got plus bus, we've got 5 picks. We are going to go not head to head for Bama-LSU, but we have a couple different bets for that game as well. So let's just get on the plus bus. A bet that you like, plus 100 odds or greater, something you're eyeing. We're going to start with you this week for the plus bus. What do you like?
Yeah, this is my second favorite bet this week, but it's my favorite underdog, so I'm using it for this segment or this part of the show. And it's Utah on the money line, plus 150. I took some plus 4 earlier the week on the Utes. So this year, the Big 12 has been absolutely crazy, where like Utah was the favorite going in the year, and they're not going to, I think mathematically could make the Big 12 title game, but they're not going to make it. Last week, we see Iowa State lose as a 2-touchdown favorite at home to Texas Tech. Kansas State goes down to Houston as a double-digit favorite. They also lose. I feel like we could see the craziness kind of continue in the Big 12, a couple favorites going down that are a little bit shorter in price, and I'll get to one later in the show. But I do like Utah here. It's the Holy War, big rivalry game with these two teams now in the Big 12 together, as Utah went over to the Big 12 this past year and BYU 2 years ago. But they used to play each other back in whatever respective conference they were. I think maybe BYU was an independent for a little bit, but Holy War back on. It's going to be a raucous crowd at Rice-Eccles Stadium, Salt Lake City. I really do think Utah shows up, even though it's been a disappointing season. But they have the bye week to get ready for this game. But the reason why I'm mostly against BYU here is because I still have some questions about them. They've had a lot of games this year where they've got very fortunate when it comes to turnovers. They had a kind of a miracle finish the last time they were at Provo against Oklahoma State on a Friday night, and that Oklahoma State team has really fallen off the map. And I just, in a league where there's so much parity and underdogs are very live, it's kind of like the old ACC when you would just kind of take the underdog in an ACC game where there wasn't a elite team involved. And I know BYU deserves a lot of credit for the season they have, but I can see them losing this week and maybe multiple games the rest of the way, even though on paper the schedule looks easy. And I think it starts against Utah, a team that we had high expectations for later in the year, and now they can maybe at least salvage some pride here in a huge rivalry game.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that with a game like this, everyone talks about how Utah's bad. There's not a good team. They've looked terrible, injuries galore, but it's their Super Bowl, and teams sometimes wake up for their Super Bowl. So I don't think this is the world's worst bet, because you probably do have a lot of people seeing this game, seeing the number, seeing how poorly Utah has been, and just saying we gotta lay with BYU. So this might be the smart side.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge with betting college football in November is trying to handicap motivation and which teams who aren't going to achieve their season-long goals are kind of out of the playoff picture or conference title picture. And Utah is one of those teams. But if there's some other maybe motivation, I think there is, just because of this rivalry game, then you could maybe find some good value betting on a team that a lot of people have kind of thrown away, but they might have one good effort in them. And I'm banking on that in the late game on Saturday night, an 8:15 Mountain Time kickoff in Salt Lake.
That's going to be a fun one. All right, let's get on the plus bus for my bet. And Nate, you're going to have to help me out here, because you know this team better than I do. You have the vibes better than I do, but we're going to go with the Mizzou money line over Oklahoma. They're plus 130 BetMGM as a home dog against Oklahoma. And here's my thinking with this. I don't think we officially know who's starting for Mizzou in this game. If it's going to be Brady Cook or if it's going to be Drew Pine, but I don't know if it matters. I just think Oklahoma's bad. They struggled to score the football. They're going to have to go on the road. Not that Mizzou's like the most amazing home field advantage team, but Oklahoma's going to have to go on the road and try to score when they just don't do that very well. Their echo rate, which is a measure of how often they create scoring chances for themselves, is in the toilet. 111th in the nation in being able to score for themselves. Their offensive success rate is 125th in the country, and their offensive line is just not very good. They don't protect their quarterback very well, and I think Missouri's defense is going to be able to at least a little bit create some havoc and get to the quarterback. They're 52nd in early down EPA defense, so they might be able to get through this Oklahoma offensive line on some of these early down situations. And maybe we see Mizzou after a 34-0 drubbing from Alabama last week. Maybe they kind of wake up, get their stuff together, and they play a much worse team now back at home. Hopefully they can wake up and win this game as home dogs. It's just, to me, this is more of a bet against Oklahoma more than anything else. And I know Mizzou has been a little bit overrated in the betting market, at least early on in the season, for how they've played. But in a situation like this, against just a team I do not believe in to score any amounts of points, I'll take the home team as a dog in a game like this.
Yeah, I can't agree with this because I do think it's going to be Drew Pine, and Drew Pine is just not a he's barely a G5 quarterback, frankly, and he was horrible in any spot he's been put in. I guess there's an outside chance Brady Cook plays, but if he does, he's dealing with a hand injury and ankle injury, so I don't think he's going to be 100%. And before the year, I actually thought Oklahoma could be decent offensively with Jackson Arnold, the quarterback, sophomore, highly heralded recruit. And now he's back in the starting lineup, so maybe he's kind of going to play a little bit better and try to compete and win the job for next year at Oklahoma. They played pretty well at Ole Miss a few weeks ago, so I don't think they've quit on this team. In Oklahoma, their defense under Brett Venables still trying, and it's a pretty good unit. I just don't see how Mizzou scores, especially if it's Pine. And I do think Mizzou's defense, while the stats might look good, if you look at who they've played and kind of strip or take out some of those bad, well, basically what I'm trying to say is Mizzou's defense looks good, but they've also played bad teams, whether it was a non-conference where it was like Murray State and Buffalo and UMass. But then when they've had to step up in class against Texas A&M, they give up like 9 yards per play at A&M. And that was against Connor Wegman, who turned out to not be very good. Maybe they're going to need him later in the year, but he already got benched. And then against Alabama, I thought the defense held up okay. And then once Pine was in, there was kind of a little bit of, I wouldn't say quit, but just they got a little fatigued in Alabama. But it's an okay defense, but Mizzou, I don't think can score with Drew Pine at quarterback. So I would talk you off this play. And if anything, I would lay the points with Oklahoma here before the news that Pine is likely in.
I was even thinking I kind of talked myself into the under at this point. I know it's relatively low, 41.5, but
yeah,
I mean, I really don't know how Oklahoma scores. And if it is going to be Pine and people don't have confidence in his ability to lead the offense, I mean, maybe we see like a 16-13 kind of game.
I would definitely suggest that before betting anything Mizzou. If you want to bet on their defense against Oklahoma offense that obviously you're not convinced by, which is very fair. They do have offensive line issues. They've had wide receiver injuries all year. Then I would look more towards the under, because just kind of reading the not the message boards, but the hints from reporters, I would say that it's Brady Cook is not going to play. And I wouldn't be surprised if he missed most of the rest of the regular season just with all the injuries he has.
Nate's deep into the Mizzou message board community.
I might be.
All right, let's go as we start our number 5 for the Fade 5 College Edition.
Number 5.
All right, Nate, I will start us off. And this is a play. You can call me un-American. You can call me a commie. Call me whatever you want. But we are betting against Air Force. We're taking Fresno State minus 10.5 against Air Force. And again, a lot of these bets that I bring on this show, it's like I'm betting against a team rather than for a team. This is a lot against Air Force. We're betting them kind of coming off their Super Bowl. We're talking about teams playing their Super Bowl. They played Army last week. This was a huge game. Army top 25 team. they did not win. They did not look good winning, and really maybe through a half they looked like they might be able to give Army a game, but after that it just was not much. So I just don't have a lot of belief in Air Force. They're 1-7 this season. They don't do a lot of things very well. Defensively they're bad. Offensively they're bad. Now you're getting a Fresno State team that they're not world beaters. They're not amazing, but they're still a capable football team. To be able to beat Air Force. They're coming off a loss to Hawaii. They lost in the last 30 seconds of that game. They gave up a 2-touchdown lead. They're going to be motivated coming into this game. They're also going to be playing, I believe, for a bowl game. They have 5 wins this season. They're looking for their 6th win. So they have that motivation factor going for them. To me, this is just a situational type of game. I don't have too many stats to back this up, but it's Air Force, a bad team, coming off their biggest game of the season. Fresno State coming off a loss. I think they are able to more than cover this 10.5-point spread. I mean, they can win by 2 touchdowns in a game like this. Air Force they're not good. And sometimes you get these service academy teams that just have years where they're a down team. They don't have the talent. This probably is just one of those years for Air Force. And I think Fresno State's going to be able to take advantage and get their 6th win and make a bowl.
Yeah, when you said that you were feeling un-American or you're un-American, I thought you were going to be wanting to fade either Army or Navy, who are the two superior service academies this year. And I've actually seen a lot of people against those teams this week. I know Navy has lost the last 2 games against Notre Dame and Rice, and they're going to South Florida on Saturday. And then Army, who is still undefeated, they may have a little bit of a tricky test at North Texas. So, yeah, I guess a lot of people are fading the service academies this week. And I will add Fresno State to my short list of potential things to bet on Saturday morning, because that definitely was a strong handicap. Definitely could see a little bit of a letdown from Air Force, even though it's a little bit scary laying points with a team from the Service Academy that might be playing at a slower pace. But Air Force is just not even close to what they were last year.
Yeah, it's a low total game, so I'd be careful. 41.5. Some places have it at 40.5, but I think Fresno State can win this game by 2 scores. Nate, we will go to you for our number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah, so let's go to Kansas, another Big 12 underdog. And Kansas was a team I was selling before the season, was under their win total 8.5. Won that before the month of October began, but it was because Kansas was losing a lot of close games, like UNLV, Illinois, Arizona State, TCU, just like every single West Virginia, a game that they were up double digits in the 4th quarter. They just have been extremely unlucky. And I think that it was regression from their last 2 years of playing very well, and they've kind of come back to the mean. But I still think they're a solid football program with Jalen Daniels at quarterback and Lance Leopold as a head coach, who's done really good things in Lawrence, all things considered, even though they're having a down year compared to what's happened in the last 3 years for the Jayhawks. And now they're getting Iowa State. And unfortunately, Iowa State lost last week. I was kind of been this season looking ahead at the week before. So last night I was looking at week 12 college football and wrote down some potential bets. And if Iowa State was going to go in undefeated to Arrowhead Stadium, where Kansas is playing their home games this year, and we're like a 6-point favorite, I would have loved Kansas catching those points. Fortunately, Iowa State loses to Texas Tech at home, and now we're only getting +3. But I think at +3, there's still enough there to play the Jayhawks, a team that I mentioned has been super unlucky this season. Against an Iowa State team that is good, but it's the Big 12. Everyone's kind of equal. I know Iowa State will probably travel well because they always travel well to Kansas City for events like the Big 12 basketball tournament when it's Ames South, I think, or Ames West or whatever they call it with Iowa State fans. So it's kind of a neutral field game, but the way Kansas is rolling, I can see some positive regression here. A team that last time out in terms of Kansas lost a close game to Kansas State as a double-digit underdog. So like Kansas here in the underdog role to maybe spoil Iowa State's season even more and taking Jalen Daniels and Lance Leopold in an underdog role. Wish I had a little bit more points if Iowa State won last week, but we'll still take the +3.
Yeah, this is a game I was considering betting, honestly, the other side for Iowa State, but there's not really a lot of great 2.5s out there. So if it stays at 3, especially goes to 3.5, I think Kansas is the move for this one, because you made a pretty good argument. But I was on the fence. I'll be honest. I was about to come here, and I think this was going to be a game where I was going to suggest we go head to head for the number 1. But I can't. 3's that's like the line for me for this Iowa State Kansas game, to be honest. Let's go to number 3.
Number 3.
All right, Nate. This wouldn't be a Fade 5 College Edition podcast show if I don't mention Indiana football. I'm wearing the shirt. I got the Bloomington heart right there that people can see. So I have to mention Indiana. They have a tough game at home this weekend against Michigan. They're laying 14.5. Some places they're laying 15. I don't want to touch the spread, but what I'm going to touch, which has been very good to me this year, is the Indiana team total. And we're going to go to the Indiana team total first half over 14.5. You can get a minus 115. Nate, to me, this is an Indiana team that just scores, and they do it really well. They have, so far, no one this season has been able to stop them from scoring. Usually I go team total. When it's under 30, you'll get 29.5, sometimes 30.5, and they'll just blow past it. I think they might have a chance to blow past their team total this week, but with Michigan's defense and pace of play, maybe they don't completely do it for the full game. But first half is where they have succeeded. They average 21 points per first half this season. At home, that goes up to 22 points per first half this season. And also Michigan's defense, we like to talk about it. This is not your older brother's Michigan defense. They have certainly struggled a little bit this season. They're 116th in the country in third down defense. Teams really take advantage of them on third down. And surprise, surprise, Indiana's 11th in the country in third down offense. So we might see a lot of opportunities where Indiana takes advantage in late down situations. Michigan's defense in the first half has been okay, 11 points per first half, but the last 3 games, that rises up to 16 points per first half. Now, a lot of that comes from the Oregon game from last week, but I still think this is a team that you could take advantage of to start the game. IU's great at moving the ball. They're second in the country in early down EPA. They're also really good at starting field position. They're second in the country in starting field position, around the 33, 34-yard line on average. So they just offensively, they move the ball really well, and now they're playing a defense that sometimes struggles late in downs and early on in the game. So to me, Indiana first half team total, I think they can get 3 scores in this one in the first 30 minutes of the game, especially at home. It's going to be another sold-out game at Memorial Stadium. I'm just going to keep riding with Indiana because so far it hasn't led me astray. So you might as well just keep going back to the well while the water's fresh.
Yeah, I've been betting college football for a while, and it's still hard to wrap your head around Indiana being a 14-point favorite against Michigan.
Nuts.
Especially after what we saw last year. And even I saw at one sports book they have some look-ahead lines for future best games of the year. And I know in 2 weeks so Indiana plays this week, they have a bye. Then they go to Ohio State, and the point spread there is 9.5 for Indiana. So maybe that was similar to what the spread was in 2020 when Indiana had that really good year, and Ohio State made the national title with Justin Fields. But even then, I feel like that spread was probably 14. I doubt it was less than 10. And we're kind of looking into that situation where, especially if Indiana looks really good this week, wins again, covers again. Curious what that line will be in Columbus in 2 weeks. And it'll feel more like the point spread of like a basketball game, like Indiana struggling going to Ohio State. But it's going to be a football game, and it's going to be a reasonable point spread and not what we're used to, where it's like 3 touchdowns when those 2 teams meet. So just weird to see. So I'm rooting for your Hoosiers this week for sure, and for them to maybe make the college football playoff, just to see what it'd be like to see that team against that competition and Kirk Cignetti and the job he's done, and really get rewarded for one of the stories of the season in college football.
Yeah, brought a tear to my eyes seeing the logo up in that bracket for the college football playoff. Absolutely nuts. I thought it was only something I'd see in a video game. But, here we are in real life, and it's actually happening. I love it.
Amazing.
All right, Nate, let's go to you for number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah, this is my favorite bet of the week. The article I wrote that's on thegamingjuice.com right now, and it's taking Georgia minus 2.5 against Ole Miss. One of the big games on Saturday afternoon. 3:30 Eastern time start, 2:30 Central. So I kind of like that fact that it's not at night. It's a afternoon game. The sun will still be out when this game is played. So I think that could help Georgia a little bit. But there's also a few other reasons I like Georgia. And I feel like Georgia's been a weird team. They've been really off. Like some of their best performances has been like best team in the country type stuff. Their second half against Clemson in week 1. After going down 28-0 to Alabama in week 5, they were incredible for 45 minutes or whatever it was before giving up the lead with 2 minutes after taking the lead.
Crazy.
And then that game against Texas. But they've also had some clunkers in there, including last week when they're tied in the fourth quarter against Florida down to their third string quarterback. They end up winning by 14 points. So I think because of that, not very good performance, coupled with Ole Miss looking really good against Arkansas, kind of getting their mojo back potentially, that we have this line at less than a field goal, when if this game was played last week, it'd be more like Georgia -3.5, -4. So we're getting a little bit of line value through the most important number in football at 3. So -2.5 with Georgia. I think there's line value in that number. And then just thinking about Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, and it's not been great whenever he has to kind of step up in class. His team has the talent disadvantage. It used to be Kiffin against Saban, and Saban would always dominate that matchup. Kiffin is 0-4 playing against Alabama. Last year, they go to Georgia. They lose 52-17 in a game that was pretty much over late third quarter. And I just think the same thing where it's kind of, we were doubting James Franklin last week about maybe winning a big game. I think there's some doubts that Lane Kiffin can win a big game against one of the elite teams in his conference. So when it's basically pick the winner, give me Kirby Smart over Lane Kiffin. I also think the injury situation suits Georgia better. Their All-American guard, Tate Ratledge, returned last week against Florida. He missed the Alabama game. He missed the Texas game. So that's a nice player to get back for this stretch run for Georgia, who play Tennessee next week. And then on the other side, Ole Miss could be without wide receiver Trey Harris, their star wide receiver. He's missed the last 2 games. I'm guessing he's going to give it a shot, but he's probably not going to be 100%. And that's going to, put a lot of pressure on Jackson Dart, who's had definitely some good moments in his college career, but also have some doubts about Ole Miss's offense in general, especially Kiffin having to go up against Kirby Smart's defense. So the thing holding him back is Carson Beck and his struggles, but if he can just kind of play a clean game and stop throwing interceptions, and maybe they can rely on the running game and defense, like a traditional classic Georgia performance. I do like Georgia giving this number to win by 3 or more on Saturday at the Grove in Oxford.
It's one of those things that almost, like, I looked at it and I was like, this feels a little trappy. I feel like Georgia should be a little more, but they're giving us 2.5. I think this might be one I fire it off after that morning slate happens. And if it's, I'm like, if it's still 2.5, I'm just going to take Georgia, because I'm probably going to be in the hole anyway, because that's how Saturdays work.
I think college football has kind of become like the NFL in a way, where there's more like wild swings week to week. I kind of wrote about in the article how we've just seen teams look really good one week and then look horrible the next week. I think Georgia's a prime example. So I think we got the bad Georgia performance last week. They were off a bye against Florida. Maybe they were looking ahead of this game a little bit and doing some game planning for Ole Miss, knowing they could knock Ole Miss pretty much out of playoff contention and pretty much secure a place in the playoffs for themselves, no matter how the season turns out. So, yeah, I do think we get Georgia's best performance, kind of like what we saw against Texas last month.
Let's go to our number 1 play.
1.
We are going down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Alabama-LSU. Nate, it's the Bayou Bengals and the Crimson Tide, and Alabama's laying 3 on the road. Total is 59. We each have a bet in this game. I'll let you go first for this one. On our sheet, it has both of our bets. So go ahead. What do you like? Who do you like?
Yeah, I'll take Alabama -3. There might get 2.5 out there, so I'd wait to bet this, but I wasn't really sure what to do with this game early in the week. I think both teams have some real flaws, but I do like Alabama coming off the bye. Kalen DeBoer, better coach than Brian Kelly. Jalen Milroe probably being a little bit healthier. I know there was a lot of whispers over the last few weeks before the bye that he wasn't 100%. He really struggled against Tennessee. Took a while to get going against Mizzou right before the bye, but I feel like Jalen Milroe is going to be unleashed here. He had an amazing game against LSU last year with his arm and his legs. So I feel like they're going to be running Jalen Milroe a lot, kind of like what we saw Texas A&M do when they went from Wegman to Marcel Reed, and Marcel Reed just ran all over LSU, and LSU's defense had no answer for that. I mean, now LSU will be able to prepare for that a little bit, but I'm not sure if they really have the personnel in the trenches to win that battle against an Alabama offensive line that maybe is underachieving, but they still all high recruits. So a lot of talent on that Alabama offense with DeBoer pulling the strings. Defensively for Alabama, definitely have some general worries about them. I think that game against Mizzou was more just bad Mizzou offense and them playing well. And same thing with Tennessee. Tennessee's offense was kind of in a funk, and Alabama's defense played well against them for the first half. But I don't know. Give me basically DeBoer over Brian Kelly in this kind of spot, even though it's at LSU at night. I do have some general worries about LSU, who have some really good pieces and talent-wise, but they just seem, I don't know about poorly coached, but they make a lot of dumb mistakes. Against A&M, it was the field goal operation, which was a complete disaster. So wouldn't be surprised if there's some lapses on defense or anything, especially with Milroe having the confidence going up against LSU last year and doing so well.
Yeah, as I was making my bet for this, I think you made a really good case for the Alabama offense. And I was honestly tilting toward the team total under for LSU. I think LSU's offense is going to struggle. And I know you mentioned a little bit about Alabama's defense, but I think Alabama's defense is honestly pretty good. And I think they match up really well with what LSU's trying to do. They are, Bama's defense is 16th in the country in defensive success rate, and they're number one, Nate, in drop back defense. They are a really good passing defense. They have a very good secondary for that. Somehow the numbers really love them. So Garrett Nussmeier might really struggle passing the ball, and I think that Alabama defensive line might be able to get to him more often than not against possibly a shaky offensive line. So if they rush Nussmeier, it's going to be a long day for LSU. So I think that's a really good reason why, if you're thinking about don't want to bet the total, just betting Alabama. But I think LSU does struggle even at home to score the football here. And the really only reason why I like the under as well is we talk about how tough it is to play in Death Valley at night, how tough it is to go to LSU at night for a night game. Maybe we see the Alabama offense either struggle or stall at points, or just take the pace a little slower, try to be very efficient with it. We've seen Jalen Milroe struggle a little bit in some games, 4 interceptions in his last 3 games. Maybe just the night game at LSU struggles a little bit offensively. That's really the only case I can make for Alabama not scoring their fair share of points here. So I think it's really just going to come down to this Bama defense playing really well against LSU, and LSU and Garrett Nussmeier just struggling to move the ball. It's also, I was checking the forecast. It's apparently supposed to rain quite a bit in Baton Rouge this weekend. Maybe some tropical storms coming around is what I was seeing. So if it does rain, it looked like it was like a 50% chance around the time this game is going to be played. So if it's going to be a downpour, if it's going to be rainy and windy, maybe we see the total also drop. So maybe you're getting a good number at 59 here as the weather forecast comes into better shape. But I do like the Alabama side. I like the under as well. And if you feel like Alabama's going to score, maybe take the LSU team total under, because I do think Nussmeier and company are going to struggle a little bit.
Very good. Should be a fun game. Looking forward to it. I feel like the loser of this game might get eliminated from the playoffs, because it would be their third loss for each. So definitely a game that maybe wouldn't have been as exciting last year with the 4-team playoff, but with the 12-team playoff, a lot at stake, as the winner will have a great shot at making the playoff, and the loser will need a lot to go their way to find a way in.
All right, it's our favorite time. It's bonus time, Nate. We're going bonus time. We got bonus time bets. We will start with you. You're first up on the list. What's a little bonus time bet to give out to the people?
Yeah, let's give Boston College on the money line, minus 122 DraftKings. They're playing Syracuse. Boston College off a bye. Last time we saw BC, it was a Friday night. They blew a big lead to Louisville. I like that they're going to be able to regroup after this game. And Syracuse, they're coming off a win last week against Virginia Tech. I think you were on Syracuse, Ben, so congrats on that win. Yeah. But you probably had no business winning that game, as they had to overcome a double-digit deficit with Virginia Tech playing their backup quarterback and backup running back. So I do not like Syracuse, even though they somehow have 6 wins, and I'm in real danger of losing my under 7.5 win total on Syracuse, especially since they have UConn left on their schedule. So going to double down here, take BC this week, and also try to keep my win total alive on Syracuse under 7.5.
I love it. Yeah, I for some reason have a really good feel for these Syracuse games, whether it's luck or not, and I don't have a good feel for Syracuse in this game. So I do think Boston College is probably the right play for this one. I am going to take an under in the SEC, and it's a game that a lot of people like Vandy, and this is a team where I think a lot of people like unders. We sasaw you had the South Carolina game under last week as well, and I think that honestly is the right side for a lot of these South Carolina games, but this is probably a lot of points. South Carolina is coming off a historic offensive performance against Texas A&M, and they had 500 plus yards of offense. I just don't think they're going to replicate that again, to be quite honest. I think their offense isn't good enough to stay that consistent. They have a bad offense in general, 100th in offensive success rate, 50th in EPA per dropback. I just don't know if they're going to be able to move the ball quite as efficiently 2 weeks in a row. So I think we see a regression from the South Carolina offense. Vandy's offense is good, and I like Diego Pavia, but I don't know if South Carolina is going to allow a lot of ball movement. They're 21st in opponent success rate, passing-wise, so Vandy might struggle to move the ball in the South Carolina defense. So because of that, some regression on the South Carolina side, probably some struggle on the Vandy offensive side. We've seen them struggle to score points and kind of finish drives successfully over the past couple of weeks. Under 46 just seems like the play to me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I know a lot of people are maybe thinking South Carolina has a bit of a letdown, but Vanderbilt also might have a letdown here because they went on the road to Auburn, won the game, and Pavia has definitely been banged up. So I think betting against both offenses make a lot of sense. I was against South Carolina's offense in a way last week. Didn't quite work out. They clobbered A&M early and then kept pouring it on eventually. And then Vanderbilt was in a real rock fight on the plains against Auburn. Is Diego Pavia now 3-0 against Hugh Freeze coach teams, and
he's unreal.
But 2 years ago is when New Mexico State and Pavia against Freeze and Liberty. Last year, New Mexico State upsetting Auburn before the Iron Bowl, and now this year Vandy over Auburn. So it's truly one crazy. Of the great marvels of college football. So yeah, under makes sense here. I could see kind of a letdown for both teams off emotional highs with their wins last week.
We love Diego Pavia in this household. Also, Carolina had Marcel Reed struggling a little bit, so maybe we'll see Pavia struggle.
Yeah,
maybe they kind of know how to handle these dual threat quarterbacks.
They were prepared for the defense. And the funny thing with Marcel Reed is he looks so good against LSU, but if he was that good against in other A&M games, whether it was against Bowling Green or against Florida or against Arkansas, I believe it was, he probably would have kept the job, but they went back to Wegman and then made the change. And now it feels like A&M season is going to come down to the final game of the season, a regular season against Texas. Win, you might have a shot at the playoff. Lose, you're probably on the outside looking in.
Very true. All right, Nate, those were our bonus time bets. Do you have anything else for the people? I think, listen, if we win this weekend, we have to do shows on Thursday from now on. That extra day of studying.
I'm all for it. Just get some extra info, especially with the Tuesday night release of the rankings. Not like it impacts the spread game to game, but it gives us maybe a little bit more to talk about.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Good luck this weekend. Nate, good luck to you. And hopefully we're back here next week talking about a winning weekend. We'll see you all next week.